review here of a 2018 Jeep Wrangler Sahara Unlimited. It's a four-wheel drive, 2.0-liter, four-cylinder turbocharged SUV with all the amazing heritage that comes along with the Jeep Wrangler brand. Easily removable folding off roofs and doors, and even a windshield that folds totally flat. This Jeep Wrangler definitely rides a lot different than the previous model. This was introduced mid-2018 as the JL version in Wrangler speak versus the previous, which was the JK. Jeep did a lot of thinking and listening to customers about their complaints and making this SUV, this 2018 mid-year Wrangler, drive a little bit differently, and I think hit more pluses on the average driver's list of wishes. So today we'll give you a quick overview of this Jeep Wrangler, the engine, the interior, the nice features, its capabilities, and then we'll give it an overall thought at the end. I don't have it for very long, so I can't do too of an in-depth review or too long of a review for you, but we'll give you an idea of what it drives like out on the highway, some interior shots and some interior likes. What's the engine like? What are the capabilities and the numbers? And then I'll give you my final thoughts at the end. This JL model gets about 270 horsepower under the engine and gets about 19 miles per gallon. So let's talk about the capabilities of this thing. Full-time all-wheel drive and transfers torque to the wheels that need it most. It drives more like a car. It's softer over bumps. The materials on the inside are a lot nicer than previous Jeeps than I can ever remember seeing. I've only been in a few Wranglers before, but there's leather stitching on the dashboard here. There's a large steering wheel with quality material. It doesn't feel cheap or chintzy or like it was an afterthought. I think sometimes with the Wrangler being such a removable, moldable SUV, the details were kind of a secondary thought or on the back burner. So if you're a Wrangler driver, let me know in the comments below what you think of the more up-to-date, the newer Wranglers like this one. There's obviously 2020 versions out right now too, but this is a couple-year-old one. Let me know in the comments below what kind of Wrangler you have and what you think about it and what it drives like in comparison to the older ones. 10 years ago, a totally different kind of Wrangler, not nearly as nice and as smooth and as refined out on the road as this one. Jeep takes its heritage and its history seriously, and it shows in this 2018 Wrangler. Jeep and the Wrangler are kind of an Americana tradition, I guess, if you're into those off-road vehicles. And there's all kinds of Jeep heritage stitched throughout this Wrangler, from whenever you turn on the Jeep and it says since 1941 to the rims. There's a small Jeep wheelies, I guess, etched into the rim side. And also right here, that center gear selector has a Jeep wheelies emblem on it. From the grille to the large flaring fenders on the side, there's a nice gauge cluster for the driver. There's a nice center console stack with a lot of easily accessible, easily viewable buttons as well. The doors, the roof, the windshield are all removable, very, very easily removed. The windshield actually only has 4 bolts holding it up to the top of the windshield panel here, and it actually then folds down flat and flush with the hood. Make sure you've got on some goggles or some large glasses to block any debris, but the windshield folds down really nice and flat. It's much easier than in previous models where there were many bolts, many tools, many hours spent to get the windshield to actually fold flat. It's pretty easy on this new model if you're into that. And the doors are also on struts. They aren't just free swinging any longer. So this means they'll actually have some increments that the doors will hold themselves in place. If you're on a small incline or something like that, they won't swing and go freely. They'll actually be held into place. And the doors are actually aluminum in this newer model, the JL 2018 Wrangler. They're aluminum, which means they weigh less and they're easier to handle and easier to kind of take off and maybe, I don't know, walk to the garage to store until you want to put them back on the car, which is a nice touch because the doors in the past, if you've had one of these, they can be a little cumbersome, a little heavy to deal with.
There is also a larger center console that is lockable, a good idea since the doors and the roof might sometimes be off. The tailgate and rear window are also wider, improving visibility. Out back, the trunk is still easily accessible with a split rear door with a glass pane that pops up and a lower tailgate that swings out. Safety-wise, the Wrangler is still behind most modern vehicles due to its design. You only get 4 airbags with side impact front seat airbags standard. There are no overhead airbags.
But there is also tall glass all around. The windows and the visibility have been improved in this 2018 Wrangler, giving you as the driver more view of the road, and you're already up pretty high anyway. Another really big touch and a big change, if you're into Wranglers, you'll notice that there's no zippers anywhere on this to remove the roof, to remove the doors, or any of the removable parts. There are no zippers. It's kind of a system instead of sliding rubber tracks that make the roof, the doors removable. Before, the zippers were kind of really tough, I guess, to put on for some owners, and I guess over the years the complaints got back to Jeep, and so they decided to change that. Let's also talk about some of the amenities inside of this thing. There's more rear leg room than the previous Wrangler, about 1.5 inches, 2 inches for rear passengers. There's a push to start button, there's an auxiliary jack, and there's USB jacks. There's a hill descent assist button. There's automatic power on and off to save fuel. When you come to a stop sign, the car will shut itself off until you go again, and it turns on in an instant and lets you go again. Something I really appreciate too, since I love music, there's a total mute button. If you just want to pause your music for a second and you don't want to turn it totally off, you can just push that mute button to yell something out the window or to talk to another passenger. There's a mute button, which is awesome. And Wranglers are all about being outdoors and in the woods, on the beach, off-roading, that kind of stuff, as you know, I'm sure. One of the really cool options on this particular Wrangler, 4 auxiliary buttons that you can program easily different things into, like a winch or a set of lights for the roof or a CB radio. Right down here on the lower part of the center console, 4 different auxiliary buttons for you to add on multiple things, making this Wrangler as customizable and as you-focused as you want. And up on the dash in general, let's talk about that. Jeep has totally redesigned it for this Wrangler, the 2018 Wrangler edition. The grips, the handle grips, they've been removed from the dashboard up onto the A-pillar. It's an easier place for you to grab if you're trying to get up in this thing. But the dashboard also looks more refined and more car-like. It's really soft to the touch. There's quality buttons. There's nothing that's kind of like, feels like a military vehicle, which some of these Wranglers can feel like. The steering wheel is large and easily gripped. Really nice quality material on that as well. There's also a 7-inch touchscreen in the center. Again, all your audio, phone controls, and infotainment controlled from there. And there's also a button called Screen Off. It does exactly that. It turns off that large touchscreen. At night, sometimes when glare is too much on the roadway and there's too many lights from the dash, clusters coming up to your eyes, you can turn that button off and it disengages the screen so that it's not bothering you any longer. Just touch the screen and it pops right back on. But there is room in here for 5. The seats are cushiony and soft to the touch, nice quality cloth material. It's not leather in here, but each of the seats also has Sahara stitched into it. But looking also up here on the dash cluster, kind of some old retro styling with these large kind of cylinder style tachometer and speedometer, kind of an homage to the Jeeps of the past. Really looks nice in here. I do like it a lot. If you've driven Wranglers in the past, they're a little bit of a rough ride over uneven pavement. Even over normal pavement, they're not the easiest and most comfortable cars to drive. I think Fiat Chrysler came in and said, hey, you know what, we're hearing from customers that they ride just a little too rough for the average person, so they changed a lot up about it. It drives very smoothly. It kind of soaks up bumps better than previous Wranglers. It doesn't have air suspension, but it definitely has more of a kind of lofty type of feel whenever you do hit some of those larger bumps. It doesn't drive like a small car at all, but it definitely has a nice feel to it. So while this Wrangler is a severely better improvement over its predecessor, the JK, the JL Wrangler still has some not so great things. One of them, it's a 4-cylinder engine and it gets not great gas mileage, only 19 combined. Not a phenomenal number at all. So that's kind of not a great thing. The price also, these things are expensive. Even used, they're still in the mid 30,000 range. They're not inexpensive to own, but then again, you are getting a rather capable, large, heavy vehicle. There's also no keyless entry on this. I don't understand why. It's 2018 when this thing was built, so why is there no keyless entry? Keyless entry as in, like, you know, putting your hand on the handle and the door opens up and recognizes you're there. There is an automatic power locks and stuff, but there's no keyless entry in the form of a hand on the handle. Another downside, a little loud when you're going faster. Maybe that's expected. Maybe Wrangler owners don't mind that, but there's not a ton of sound dampening material in this. It is quieter than previous Wranglers, but not terribly quiet at all, especially when you're at 50 miles an hour and above. One more kind of con thing, they go together for me. The position of the seating is a little too high. I know that the ride height is high to begin with, but the seats feel a little high. I mean, I already have this as low as I can go, and I still feel like I'm a little too high in the car. That also directly impacts your view of the gauge cluster. The words fuel economy, the speedometer top, the tachometer top, and part of the temperature gauge are all blocked or cut off because they're not positioned terribly well with the seat position. So you're sitting a little too high and part of the gauges aren't visible. Not the end of the world. You can also, squat your head for 5 seconds and look, but you shouldn't have to do that, especially in a car that's been around for forever and that costs this much. But overall, the Wrangler Sahara Edition, the 2018 mid-year JL model, a vast improvement over the Wrangler from before. Rides more like a car, soaks up some more of those bumps and imperfections better than its predecessor. It also has rich, nice material on the inside, especially when you get up to the higher trim levels. The power is actually really nice as well. That 4-cylinder turbo really pulls, and it's got a lot of weight to pull. There's also a 3.0-liter V6 that pumps out a little bit more power, but obviously then is going to have worse gas mileage. And the Wrangler's rather easy to drive as well. Not a ton of body roll, not a ton of imperfections over large bumps. It definitely has a stiffer suspension, which is definitely expected. But that is a quick overview with a quick behind-the-scenes look at this 2018 Jeep Wrangler Sahara Unlimited. Not a lot to it. Quick review, don't have the car for very long, so can't get too in-depth, as I said. But I appreciate any and all support. Make sure you're subscribed below and turn on that bell to make sure you know whenever we upload a new video. We try to upload a few videos every week, at least one a week for you. Let us know what other things you want to see, what other kind of critiques and suggestions you might have. But that is it for now. We will see you next time right here on Overdrive Reviews.